everyone. Hi guys. Welcome to the 2026 Student Government Association Executive Debate. My name is Erin Moore and I'm the Chief Elections Officer. I'm going to be moderating this debate alongside my two friends, Peter Wynn and Vishwasri Aleti.
Good evening, folks. My name is Peter Wynn. I'm the advisor for the Student Government Association, and I help out SGA with all their functions and just help them throughout the year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vishwasri Aleti, and I'm the graduate advisor for SGA, so I just kind of help out wherever is necessary and kind of serve as like a student ambassador in a way as well. And I help with making connections and like bonding events in SGA.
Here's the layout for our debate today. Each candidate will have a chance to introduce themselves. Then I will ask each candidate a few questions before we pass it on to audience questions. Audience, a reminder to utilize the QR code on the screen to ask questions related to the officer position they are campaigning for. The QR code will also be on each slide throughout the night. Peter will be vetting questions, while Vishwasri will be keeping time, and I will be asking questions. We will first start with the Secretary and Treasurer candidate, then the Vice President candidates, and finally, the presidential candidates. Let's begin our debate with our Secretary candidate, Zach Edwards, and our Treasurer candidate, Reagan McComas. We will now start with opening statements, starting with Zach.
Hi guys, I'm Zach Edwards. I'm running for secretary this year. I'm a freshman film studies major. A little bit about me. I've been in the IAC committee this past semester, last year during the fall, as a junior senator. So I've covered a lot of the legislation and all documents that we passed in the past semester. So I'm really passionate about making sure that the job gets done clean, quick, fast, but like efficiently. Another quick fact about me, while I still have the time, is I have read probably all the available minutes that SGA has ever made available currently on our Student Hub and other resources. That's a nerdy thing, not a cool thing, but I have a lot of precedent to work off of concerning like past secretaries and what they were specifically covering, as well as focusing on in their administrations. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Hi, y'all. I'm Reagan McComas. I'm running for treasurer of SGA this year. A little bit about me. I'm an electrical engineering and Spanish major, and I've been serving on SGA as both a junior senator last semester, and now I'm currently representing the College of Engineering and Computer Science. While with SGA, I've been on the Student Services Committee, which deals a lot with chartering clubs, and we definitely talk a lot about student organization funding. And because of that, I've really been inspired to run for treasurer because there are a lot of things that I see we could make a difference in. I would love to push for more open budget with SGA to make sure that you and other senators can be really involved in that budgeting process for SGA, as well as exploring other avenues for student funding and really just making sure that student orgs can have the best experience possible while on campus.
Our first question will be Zach. How do you plan to effectively communicate information with the student body and the SGA body through the Student Hub? Did you just break it? Use the one.
Sorry about that. So our Student Hub is a resource that everybody uses, and I think the most crucial thing that we could be doing in SGA is making sure that the Senate minutes are put into the Student Hub as quickly as possible. And so I know that part of that is working with the Director of Design and the Director of Communications. Shout out to them. These are relatively new positions within our executive board. So just working with them and making sure that they're up to date with the stuff that we're doing in meetings, but also making sure that I have part of their sign off to the things we put on the Student Hub. And just making sure that I'm taking like thorough minutes for the student body to understand when they're actually reading it in the Student Hub. It's kind of hard to like capture what we're talking about within a Senate meeting or other meetings a lot of the time. So it's important to make sure that it's pretty understandable. It's something that I'm passionate about, is making sure that the the minutes that we put within the student hub for the students to be able to read, to know what SGA is talking about is understandable.
Our next question will be for Reagan. As SGA charters more organizations over the next year, how do you plan to oversee the SGA budget to allow for equitable allocation?
Thank you for the question. As part of SSC this semester and last semester, I've gotten to see a lot of how budgeting and funding for student orgs is handled. And one thing that SSC has been working on and recently got passed is the ability to audit and look at clubs that have already been chartered. We have so many student organizations on campus, and a lot of them are very active, and they do a lot for our campus community. But there are some student orgs who are inactive. They're not holding meetings, and they might still be receiving funding. And so making sure that we are really checking what's going on there, and if a club is completely inactive, taking that funding back and reallocating it elsewhere is something that I think is very important. And then I would also like to explore other avenues for student funding. We have a wonderful career fair, and I think it would be a great idea to really try to connect clubs that are relevant to companies at the career fair with each other, because clubs already independently seek sponsorships, but if we could help them make those connections to seek sponsorships, I think that could be really beneficial.
Thank you. We will now move on to audience questions. The first audience question is for Zach. Zach, what's your favorite TU memory in one word or less?
My favorite TU memory in one word or less is community.
Thank you. Reagan, the next audience question is for you. In the wake of budget cuts at TU, how do you plan to appropriately represent the student body and the distribution of funds?
I think that representing the student body means listening to student voices. I feel like this year in SGA, we definitely got to see a lot of the budget, but I would love to see more participation from the student body and even people within SGA as that budget is being crafted. So as treasurer, I would want to hold meetings, and I would definitely advertise those to people within SGA, but also make sure they're put in newsletters for everyone else to see. That way, the student body and members of SGA can come to these meetings and really voice their opinion. If they're in a student org and they think that more funding should be allocated to orgs, they can share that. Or if there's something on campus elsewhere that they enjoy that they think could benefit from more funding, just making sure that all of those students can share their opinion when we're still kind of in the bare bones building of the budget for the year.
I ask that you hold all applause until the very end. Sorry, I didn't say that earlier. Thank you. Now you can clap. We will now transition to our vice presidential candidates, Ella Hampton, Parker Wheeler, Lily Wilsterman, and Archit Dash. We will now start with the opening statements, starting with Ella.
Hi, my name is Ella Hampton, and I'm running for vice president. I'm currently an anthropology and history student here, and I'm also serving as the transfer student senator, and I have been for this is my 4th semester. In my time at SGA, I've been on the Constituent Engagement Committee, and in this last school year, I have become the Constituent Engagement Committee vice chair. In my time on Constituent Engagement Committee, I've worked to have monthly meetings with campus security to give them student concerns and get those concerns addressed. If y'all ever have any questions, let me know. I've also been working with another senator to get a free little library installed on campus. That way it's just something for our community to use. We'll bring outsiders to campus that help build our community with TU as a whole, or Tulsa as a whole. As I said, I'm the transfer student senator. I transferred here from
Hi, everybody. I'm Lily Wilsterman, and I'm also running for vice president. I'm a sophomore engineering physics and Spanish major, and I've been in SGA for 2 years. I spent a year as the clerk on the Judicial Council, and as a year as our Greek housing senator. So throughout that time, I've really just been able to see some of the inner workings of SGA and some definite areas that we can improve. So what I'm really running on is improving efficiency, transparency, and communication, both within SGA and with the broader student body. I think there's a lot of people who understand how SGA advocates for us, but at the same time can be distracted by stories of long meetings, late night arguments, and stuff that makes them not really understand how SGA advocates for the student body. So as vice president, I would work to increase communication within SGA and with the broader student body so that they understand how we can advocate for them and that they're more willing to share their concerns with us. Thanks.
Please hold applause. Thanks. You're good.
Sweet. So my name is Archit Dash. I am a junior pre-medical biology major. And with that being said, I am currently serving my 6th term as senator here in SGA. During this time, I've had the opportunity to see 3 different vice presidents and their leadership styles and how that affects the productivity of SGA at large. With that being said, I realized I now have a chance to shape SGA, shape the progress that we make in our meetings, and stuff like that, and as such, I have decided to run. In my time here as a senator, I've served as the vice chair for the Student Services Committee, which ensures that we charter new student organizations, we organize activities such as the Activities Fair, and we also, throughout the past few years, divvied up funding. So with all of that being said, I want to ensure that I can accurately represent the interests of the student body next year should I serve as a vice president.
Parker couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, so his answers will be a video.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Parker Wheeler, and I'm excited to be running for vice
That's not it.
president. Firstly, Good evening, everyone. My name is Parker Wheeler, and I'm excited to be running for vice president. Firstly, I want to start off by apologizing for not being there with you tonight. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., advocating for malaria. Good evening, everyone. My name is Parker Wheeler, and I'm excited to be running for vice president. Firstly, I want to start off by apologizing for not being there with you tonight. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., advocating for malaria. To run for you. I'm going to start off by apologizing for not being there with you tonight. I'm currently in Washington, D.C., advocating for malaria eradication. However, my focus remains firmly here on campus. I'm running for vice president because I believe this role is the vital bridge between your voices and administration. I'm not here for a title or for bragging rights. I'm here to ensure that student government is a team that truly represents you. Balancing a bold vision for our future with the consistent hands-on action required to make this a reality, I want to run for you.
Our first question will start with Lily. What do you believe it takes to be a successful and effective vice president?
Sorry, guys, I'm technologically challenged. All right, what I believe it takes to be a successful and effective vice president really comes down to organization and communication. In order to make sure that Senate meetings run as efficiently as possible and that student government is able to advocate effectively for the student body, I think it's necessary that a vice president takes the time to make sure before the meeting that the docket is clear and is shorter, that within Senate meetings order is maintained, and that throughout meetings and throughout all of SGA, that student voices are adequately represented, decisions are well thought through, and that no matter what, we are always going back to what is best for the student body, regardless of our own biases or whatever we're bringing in. We go back to whatever is best for our constituency, because that, I believe, is what makes an effective Senate, an effective SGA, and as vice president, I would like to advocate for that.
Sweet. So when I look at this question, I'm specifically looking at the word effective. So in order to be an effective vice president, I strongly believe that you need to exhibit leadership values. So what exactly does that entail? From my perspective, I think that entails steering conversations in productive directions, even if the Senate body at large gets distracted. I believe that means that when we have student orgs coming to get chartered in SGA, not leaving them to wait outside for 45 minutes while we bicker over the same points again and again and again. It's disrespectful to their time, and it's completely ineffective because we just waste valuable time going over the same points and again and again. So with that being said, to be an effective leader, we need to be able to have, the guts to say no to our peers, to be able to be judicious with our time, and to be able to be efficient. And so with all of that being said, I'd say one of the most important qualities that you have to exhibit to be effective is that strong sense of leadership. Thank you.
So one of the important things I think to being a successful and effective vice president is being a bridge between the student body as a whole and Senate. Senate can't do their job if they don't know the actual concerns of the student body. We need to have someone there, like the vice president, who can take those concerns, get them to the right people, and get something done about it. Also, like they said before, making sure our meetings are efficient. There have been meetings where we have left organizational reps in the hallway for an hour, and that's just not acceptable. We need someone who is willing to say, we've said this before, we need to move on, go to a different point, it's a dead horse. So I think to me, just to be successful, you have to be willing to say no and also be that bridge that the student body needs.
To me, being a successful and effective vice president isn't just about holding a title or being above everybody else. It's about being the bridge between students' voices and our administration. I want to make sure our student government isn't just a name on a flyer, but a team that truly represents the student body. An effective vice president also needs to balance vision with action. Anyone can have ideas or visions, but the real leadership comes from turning those ideas into action with teamwork between all sectors of student government and consistent communication. I believe in creating systems where every student knows their input matters and where progress is actually visible. The first step I've made towards this is creating a survey where I can gather all students' voices on campus and work towards their idea of a dream school, one by one. Ultimately, success as vice president means creating an environment where students feel genuinely proud to be here at TU, not just academically, but for the family we build here together. And that's exactly what I hope to bring to TU, a commitment to make real change happen. To me, being a successful and effective...
Ella, you will start off our next question. What is an obstacle you see TU students face, and how would you work with SGA committees and chairs to navigate that?
One of the biggest things I've seen, especially in the last year, is a lot of students feel like there's a lack of transparency from upper university administration. And I'd like to work with chairs and upper administration as a whole to get students more answers. We've seen in the last year with the search for the president, we don't know what's happening. And so I think that if the vice president, the chairs, everyone can work together, we can get more answers for students that help them know what's happening here. Because if we're honest, a lot of us pay a lot of money to go here, and we deserve to know what's happening with our education. So that's one of the biggest issues I see facing students lately, and I think that we shouldn't be having that issue, especially at a university like this. So,
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Ella said. I think that more broadly, though, students feel like their voices aren't being heard, either by SGA or by university administration. And so one of the ways that I would work to solve that is through increasing transparency so that students know what SGA actually talks about. Like, we're there until all hours of the night, and oftentimes students come away from that and they're like, what do they even do? They don't really think that we do much. So by increasing communication with the student body, I want to help students understand how SGA advocates for them. Things like getting a fall break, which was the work of our SGA exec and the chairs over this past year. That's something that's really great, and I think a really effective change SGA has made, but oftentimes students don't know that these are happening until they've already happened, which is great. But things I've seen going through the Constituent Engagement Committee, like the fall break when we were in the process of that, things like the Culinary Council, which is where students can actually go and advocate for their needs in regards to food on campus. Different things like that, I believe, are ways that SGA concretely advocates for students, but aren't effectively communicated. So students are frustrated because they feel like their voices aren't being heard by the administration and by the student government. So by increasing communication, by having more avenues to let students know what we're actually doing in SGA and communicating that more effectively, I think we can help resolve those concerns.
Yeah, so both of the other candidates had very good points about the student body feeling disenfranchised in a sense. And one of the biggest issues that I've seen when announcing my campaign to my fellow peers was that a lot of people asked me the question, what does SGA even do, right? There's a great degree of distance that the student body at large has from the student government. And one of the ways in which I would try to target that is to collaborate more with the student body and with student organizations. A lot of our events are sort of held like a club, you know, where it's senators running these events, it's senators, going out and tabling and stuff like that. Collaborating with student organizations and the student body at large to host meet and greets and stuff like that would be a great avenue through which we can learn student concerns whilst also, contributing to closing the gap that SGA has with the student body at large. So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Our next question will start with Archit. How will you, oh wait, just kidding, Parker. My bad.
One big stigma on campus is that many students don't feel like SGA really does anything at all. If elected, I'd propose a plan where every committee member would have to sit in at least one separate committee meeting per semester. Similar to how we would track senators' outreach hours, we would also track their committee hours. I know how many people have suggested this in the past within Senate, but it has never been set in stone or made a plan. There could also be a town hall type of meeting where every semester the chairs of committees would have an open discussion with students interested in what SGA has done this semester.
Now our next question will start with Archit. How will you work with Senate to support the student body as a whole?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the vice president is ultimately the leader of the Senate body at large. We help conduct meetings, we help organize the functions of the Senate body, and as such, the vice presidential role is the most important when you were factoring in the duties of the Senate. So for me, that in order to most support the student body, we need to ensure that Senate actually creates substantive change. Whether that means supporting CEC with their various projects over the years, such as the Fall Break and the Culinary Council, or it's the Student Services Committee in chartering new organizations and delineating those that do need funding and those that don't. I know in the past I've had to work with separating out all of the student orgs into autonomous and sponsored because we had lots of funding going towards organizations who, quite frankly, don't need them. And so, with all of that being said, I think ensuring that SGA is efficient and effective, as we talked about before, I believe that that's the best way that the vice president can, support the student body at large. Thank you.
I believe that one of the best ways, of course, beyond communication and all the things that we've done, is making sure Senate adequately supports our senators as well. Of course, we are a student government, but we're also a student government. Academics should be our first priority. As much as we do want to keep advocating for the student body, the best way we can do that is making sure our senators feel supported and that it's not a barrier to people being in SGA. Some people that I've talked about and asked about running for SGA have said, yeah, I would consider it, but the fact that we have meetings that go until midnight or 1, I just can't do that. That's even been difficult for me this semester. I have an 8 a.m. on Wednesdays, and staying up late at Senate is something that could make it a barrier to my involvement and others as well. Of course, I'm always willing to be there and step up and serve the student body, but something that we can do by making Senate more efficient, by working to be more organized, by working for more communication between the branches and the committees, by helping judicial be more involved to help make Senate more effective, our meetings more thoughtful while still remaining shorter. That allows our Senate to be more representative of the student body because there's not that barrier to involvement. So the best way to work with Senate to make sure we support the student body as a whole is making sure students' voices can be most adequately represented. The best way to do that is by making sure Senate remains effective and efficient.
Okay, so over my time in Senate, I have seen quite a few things. But one thing I've noticed is our governing docs are a mess. And I don't think we can have effective meetings if those aren't updated. So I think those need to be updated. But I want to make sure that that doesn't take away from our main focus, the students. There have been times in Senate where we have been there till 1 a.m., 2 a.m., going in circles over the same internal thing, when really we should be focusing on the students. And so I want to make sure that we do update these things that need to be updated to make our meetings run smoothly, but I don't want the students to fall to the wayside. I think that working with IAC to make sure they get updated would be one of the priorities, but also working with our other committees to make sure we're addressing the needs of the student body and not hyper-focusing on just one thing. So I think those are like my two main things that I think would help support the student body.
While our current outreach hours are a great start, I do believe we need to be more proactive. I plan to advocate for high traffic events such as Day with SGA and Hurricane Plaza, and by bringing the senators a high traffic spot and offering incentives to students such as free food, we can create a space where students actually want to engage. But it's more about just a meal, it's about opening a door. I want to use these events to gather real-time feedback and show students exactly how their voices turn into Senate action. My goal is to make SGA a visible, approachable resource where every student feels heard and their concern has a seat at the table.
Our first audience question is to Archit specifically. Archit, if you and the president fundamentally disagree on a major issue, how will you handle that disagreement behind closed doors versus in public?
So this is where collaboration comes into play. If we have major disagreements, ultimately that is a closed-door discussion. We need to ensure that we are representing the interests of those who voted for us first and foremost, not our personal interests. So I strongly believe that through healthy communication, I would be able to reach a meaningful middle ground. We can then project our differing opinions out into the student body at large. However, I believe that healthy communication is far better than public bickering, per se. So, yeah, that's how I would take into account disagreements with the president.
Our next audience question will be for all of you, starting with Ella. How do you plan to direct and lead the Senate body as vice president?
So I would make sure we're following Robert's Rules of Order, which makes everything go a lot smoother when we actually follow it. Also our Senate standing rules, and just making sure that like we do things right. Because if we can do things the right way, it usually goes a lot quicker. And we've had a hard time with that in the past, so.
I would say on the point of directing and leading Senate specifically, one change that I would like to make is making sure that judicial is more looped in on specifically changes to our governing documents. By running those through judicial before they come to the Senate floor, we can catch typos or other small things that are going to be very important and that tend to be most of the topic of argument within Senate whenever we have these meetings, which is why they tend to run so long. So by looping in judicial, I hope we can shorten some of that and make sure a lot of those things get caught before they come to us. But when it comes more to the Senate body, or the student body as a whole, the best way I think I can direct and lead would be by serving them, by asking the student body what their concerns are, by seeing how we can help them. Because at the end of the day, the student body is there to represent student voices and serve them. So by further communication, by telling them what we're up to, I believe that's the best way to direct and lead them.
So, my perspective is that as a vice president, you need to be able to lead the Senate effectively. So that includes cutting people off when they go over their time limits. That includes keeping things on track when we ask the same questions over and over again. That means ensuring that questions to organization representatives, for example, are respectful. So all of these factors are important to me personally. And these are ideals that I would embody while being vice president. And in addition to that, I would focus on the student body as a whole. There are certain initiatives and programs that are tremendously popular amongst the student body. And I think giving focus to those programs would do wonders to help close the distance, once again, between SGA as a whole and the student body. So, yeah. Thank you.
Our next audience question will start with Lily first and be for all of you. What is your attendance record for Senate and committee meetings?
Honestly, I don't want to say this if I'm not 100% sure, but I would say I'm 95 to 100% sure that I have a near perfect attendance record. I can't think of a single Senate meeting or committee meeting that I skipped this last semester. I may have missed 1 or 2 judicial meetings as a clerk, but I'm always there because I want to serve my student body, and I always make that a priority.
So I've been in SGA for now 6 semesters, and throughout this whole period of time, I've been there. If not every Tuesday, then most. I can't remember the last one I skipped. But with that being said, I've been there. I've been there on whenever we hold our SSC meetings. That's sometimes Fridays. This semester it's Tuesdays. I became the vice chair. So yeah, I've been there quite a lot. Yeah.
So this is my 4th semester in SGA, and I believe the only committee meetings I've missed were because I was working the election and at the polling place. I walked in right as the meeting ended. And then for elections training. Other than that, Senate, I believe I've only missed 1 meeting because I was like at home dying in bed. Like I even went after the elections. I was 12 hours, but yeah, I'm always there.
The next audience question will be for everyone, starting with Archit. What is the most important role that VP has?
So if we're looking at real substantive impact, I believe, as I've said throughout tonight, it's managing the Senate body. That's where we have the most power. That's where the vice presidents are able to make their biggest impacts. And that's also where I've seen the last 3 vice presidents thrive the most. Each of these 3 vice presidents had different leadership styles, but with that being said, their different leadership styles has really helped foster SGA as a whole. I remember the junior senator program, for example, was started by a vice president my freshman year, and that had real substantive impacts going forward. So yeah, I think conducting SGA and then like certain SGA events, that's the most important.
Yeah, I would echo what Archit said. I think primarily the vice president role is more internally focused than the president. Our main job is to run the Senate. And I think there's a lot of very effective ways that vice presidents can make sure Senate runs smoothly. One of those is setting the docket for meetings and making sure that we don't have too many items to cover in one night, making sure that people don't run over time whenever they're speaking, making sure that discussions remain respectful, and making sure that we stay on topic and we're not repeating ourselves over and over. There's not redundancies, asked and answered questions. Just maintaining order in Senate meetings, I think, is the most powerful position that a vice president can have, and really our best way of serving the student body.
So I'm going to echo the other candidates. I do think that is a very important part, but I also think, as I said earlier, being this kind of bridge between the different branches, between Senate and exec, Senate and university leadership, the student body, I think that's where the vice president really can excel at their job, just by helping connect and communicate different things to all the different moving parts of SGA.
The next audience question will be for all of you, starting with Ella. In the past 4 years, the vice president has first been a Senate chair. Given that no candidates have held this position, how confident are you with navigating both Senate chair meetings and garnering overall Senate respect?
I mean, I'm pretty confident in it. I have been a vice chair for the last year, as I know Archit has been. I think it's a plus to have been a committee chair. I don't think it's necessary because you can still be really involved in Senate and not be a chair. You can still know what's happening and not be a chair. So I think honestly any one of us would do a good job.
Yeah, I feel fairly confident that even though I haven't been a Senate chair, I haven't been a vice chair, I've still been very involved in my committee and in Senate as a whole. Because honestly, at the end of the day, being a Senate chair is in fact helpful. But having these skills of communication, organization, being able to more broadly focus on intercommittee communication, interbranch communication, that is more important than having been the head of a single committee. And I think one unique advantage I bring to the table is my time in judicial. Like I said, my first year I was a clerk in the judicial committee, so I got to see how judicial works and what they really do and how they can actually advocate for the student body by helping to look over governing docs before they come to the Senate floor. I think that's one way judicial can be more involved and more helpful, and that's something I've been able to see because of my time there. So I believe that the most important thing is for a vice president to be able to effectively communicate between the branches, between committees, and with the Senate body as a whole.
Yeah, so I'd like to echo the sentiments of the other two candidates. It's really imperative that we, as vice presidents, are able to conduct all of these meetings, like the ones with the vice chairs and the ones with judicial, to the best of our ability. And so, as such, yes, having experience as the chair of a committee would provide, support for your abilities to conduct these meetings. However, I think fundamentally speaking, I've been an executive officer of many student organizations on campus. I've, been part of SGA for the past, 3 years now. I've seen these meetings. I've seen how they're conducted. I know that I am going to be able to collaborate, and this harkens back to previous questions as well. I think being a communicative leader is really important.
The next audience question is again for all of you, with Lily starting. How will you be able to balance your other obligations, such as other organizations, coursework, internships, etc., with SGA's workload?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair and very important question. Personally, I know I'm involved a lot on campus, but something that has helped me is just making sure that I take that time to stay organized. Set aside time for each of my obligations, whether it's coursework, sorority life, campus ministry, whatever I'm involved in. Setting aside definitive times and planning out my schedule has really allowed me to stay on top of things and make sure I'm staying organized. And adding this vice president position into my schedule would definitely take some adjustment, but it's something that I feel equipped to do, and I feel as though I would be able to remain organized in that.
Okay, so next year I'm gonna be a senior. I was actually on track to graduate this year, but I'm pre-med. I kind of wanted to enjoy my undergraduate lifestyle. I wanted to get involved on campus. And so I think I have something like 9 credit hours for next semester, and that's a lot less than I'm used to. So I'm gonna have plenty of free time just personally. And with that being said, I have proved to myself that I'm able to juggle executive positions in student organizations. I've proved that I can be a UA, even though that's not that big of a time commitment. So I don't know. I think I'm more than ready to take on this position because let's face it, it's a time-consuming, difficult, exhausting position to hold. But I think I'm well prepared for next year. So yeah.
So I was obviously looking at this when I decided to run, and I'm kind of in the same situation as Archit, where I was supposed to graduate this year, and then I added a major, so I was going to graduate in the fall. And I was like, why would I do that? Let's add a minor. And I've gotten to the point where I'm going to have barely any classes next year. Like, I'm involved in a couple of clubs. They don't take that much time. And like anyone who knows me knows I can't like sit still and not do anything. I always have to be doing something. So I just thought this would be a great way to fill my time. So.
The next question is for all of you, starting with Archit. A lot of the time, students and student groups have to shout from the rooftops to be heard by SGA due to the sheer volume of issues needing attention. As Vice President, how will you listen to the voices of quieter students on campus?
Yeah, so I think one of the best methods through which we can help foster communication from quieter students on campus is by both hosting more events with the student body, such as meet and greets. Hey, I'm your vice president. Do you have any concerns for me? Oh, if you don't feel comfortable talking in person, here's a good form where we can read your concerns. So I think having more events like this where you can get to know the student body and their concerns would really be effective in, supporting the students and their interests on campus. So yeah, that's all for me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the main goal, just being able to reach out to students more and make SGA and its members more accessible to the student body. I think there are some ways to do that through holding events, of course, and asking students directly, but I think also something SGA could do is have more of an involvement in polling students, sending out surveys, getting more electronic communication from the student body beyond just our presence physically in the student union or in Hurricane Plaza through tabling. I think one of the biggest ways is to reach out to students and not wait for them to reach out to us. Ask them, what are your concerns? How can we help you? And I think an initiative that SGA has been putting in is going and talking to clubs more. Some of that is to audit and make sure those clubs remain effective, but that's also to reach out and see their concerns. So I think the biggest thing that we can do to make sure student voices are heard is to reach out and ask them first.
Yeah, so in CEC, we do a yearly tabling event where we have a forum and we ask questions, and that's where a lot of the stuff we do throughout the year comes from. But I think having something more permanent where students don't necessarily have to find someone in SGA and talk to them. If we have some kind of form on the Student Hub where they can submit concerns and we can go through them and do what we can to help, just giving students as many options and different ways as possible to tell us what their concerns are. I think that would be the biggest thing for me.
The next audience question is for all of you again, starting with Ella. How will you manage expediency, getting out of there quickly, with making sure elected voices are heard?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest, are you talking about like Senate?
Yes?
Yes, okay. I think one of the biggest things that we run into problems with is going in circles, asking the same thing, saying the same thing over and over again. So I would do it myself, and I would push senators to, if we've heard the same thing 3 times, asked and answered, move on. Also, I sit in the back of every Senate meeting and I time everyone, and as soon as they go over, it's on order, you're done. So I think making sure someone's doing that, making sure we're looking at how long have we been discussing this? Is there really anything new to say, or should we move on? Because while everyone may want to say their piece, we need to make sure it hasn't been said already. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think Senate does tend to run into a lot of redundancies, arguing in circles, the same people or different people not paying attention maybe, or just feeling like they haven't been heard enough, so they repeat the same thing over and over. The problem with that is that it ends up in meetings that last till 12 a.m., 1 a.m., and that's hard for people who are there. That's hard for student orgs who may be sitting out in the hallway an hour plus, and I don't think that's respectful to really anyone there. So I think some ways that we can manage that is firstly by making sure we set the docket properly. We're not trying to cram too many things into one night so that we know it's going to last, even if all of those individually might not take as much time. Another thing is, again, involving judicial, making sure we look over our governing docs, any legislation that's coming to the floor before it gets to the floor, so small things that might end up getting argued about for a long time end up getting caught before then. And then, of course, just managing order within Senate and following Robert's rules, making sure that we don't repeat ourselves or are redundant so that we can get out of there quickly while still being effective and thoughtful.
Yeah, so they both had great answers. I mean, I can remember spending, in my opinion, almost wasting time correcting simple grammatical mistakes in governing documents before they're brought to the Senate floor. That's a really easy fix where we could just, have proper grammar before coming in, and then we don't waste 30 minutes just arguing over a sentence structure. So with that being said, I think it is really important that the elected senators say their piece, say what they want to say. But as we've talked about throughout tonight, we've got to prevent people from going in circles. We have to make sure that everybody's respectful. We need to ensure that, you're just staying on point. And so, yeah, it's kind of more so about reining people in as opposed to cutting people out of the discussion at large, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that's it for me.
The next audience question is for all of you. Start with Lily. A platform for many people running is transparency. How are you working towards transparency as a senator now?
I think one way that I work towards transparency as a senator is by talking to the people that I know that aren't involved in SGA. So talking to people specifically after I filed for vice president, asking them, what are your concerns? How can I run an effective campaign as vice president that actually takes your concerns into account? But even before that, as a senator, like, hey, this is something coming to the floor tonight. What are your thoughts on that? And it might be someone who has no idea what's going on in SGA, someone who's like, what does SGA even do? So I try to help explain to them what this means and what it means for the student body, and also how it's important to them, so that I can get their thoughts on it, so that I can bring those thoughts to the Senate floor to see how I can best help them and reaching out to them, so that it's not a situation where it's just insular and we're all arguing about things without actually having reached out to our peers.
So I've been working a few different ways. As I mentioned before, I have monthly meetings with campus security. I wasn't the one who started them, but I've taken them over in this past year. I'll usually have another senator or two come along. We just ask them questions. They'll tell us pretty much any stat of like, hey, bike thefts are up. Tell everyone to lock their bikes. And so I think that's one place to start, where like campus security knows what's happening on this campus everywhere. And if we can get information and send it out, I've sent it out in newsletters before, I think that really helps give a view of campus as a whole. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think a really underutilized resource in the past has been student organizations. Throughout this campaign and even beforehand, I've been reaching out to several student organizations to hear their concerns, whether they be Greek life, multicultural, pre-professional, or otherwise. Every single student organization represents a certain set of interests from the student body. So talking to these student organizations, their executive members, and even just normal day-to-day folks, it's a really valuable resource that we have, It's a small campus. I have friends who are presidents or executive members across the board, whether it be, pre-medical or whether it be business, right? We have a very small campus, and so we have a very valuable opportunity to really get to know the interests through student organizations. All right, thank you.
That's all of our audience questions. We will now start with closing statements, starting with Archit.
Yeah, so thank you guys for hearing us yap for the past however long it may have been. Just know that if you do vote for me, I will try to value your opinion and try to represent your opinion through Senate meetings. And just know that I will ensure that Senate is as productive as it can be. I'm going to make sure that we stay on track. I'm going to make sure that we create substantive impacts on campus. And so I think any of the other candidates would do a wonderful job as vice president. But with that being said, if anything that I've said tonight resonates with you, I hope that you'd vote for me. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you all for your time. Again, my name is Lily Wilsterman. Really, what I want you all to take away from this is a lot of us all want the same things. We want to advocate for you. And if you all will vote for me, I want to do that through efficiency, transparency, and respect. I want to help respect the student organizations that come to the floor by respecting their time and respecting their goals. I want to help respect our student senators by, again, respecting their time and making sure that academics are prioritized, but also we're prioritizing our constituencies and hearing their voices. And in that, I want to help the student body recognize that SGA truly does want to advocate for them. I want us to reach out to students more so that we can hear their voices and prioritize what you all want to change about this university. I want to help in everything we do. I want to help the student body to have the best college experience through TU that they possibly can.
Yeah, so if elected, I really hope that I can work with everyone else to make some good change. Something I hear a lot is, we're just a student government. It doesn't matter what we do. And you know what? Sometimes it does feel like that. But I think if we work on our communication, work on our image of like, let's actually look like we're doing something, guys, that we can make student government mean something. Also, if I'm honest, I'm just here for the love of the game, because no college I'm applying to for forensic anthropology cares if I was student government vice president. I'm just here to have fun, try to make this school better. Like they've said before, I think any one of us would do a good job, but I hope y'all vote for me.
In every election cycle, we hear the word transparency thrown around as a campaign buzzword. And honestly, I've used it too. But rarely do we see people go deep into what that actually means. And to me, transparency isn't just a report or a website. It's a commitment to being fully accessible. I want to be vice president for all students, especially those who feel their opinions don't fit the standard mold. Whether you agree with me or not, I want you to reach out to me, ask me the hard questions, and give me your raw opinion on the issues facing our campus. My goal is to shift the culture of leadership here at TU, and I believe that SGA, as well as the administration, should be the loudest advocates for the students, not a body that pushes an agenda or a single set of beliefs. We aren't here to tell you what's best for you. We're here to amplify what you tell us you need. I'm ready to facilitate a government that is truly grassroots, inclusive, and protective of the student voice. Let's build a TU where the administration works for us, and where every opinion has a feels heard, and their concern has a seat at the table.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our presidential candidates. Aristotle Orsini, Bruce Bigler, Jake Staub, Beckham Shell, and Harish Vaidyanathan. We will now start with closing statements, starting with Aristotle.
Hey guys, I'm Aristotle. This is my opening statement. I am running for SGA because I'm not really part of SGA. I am on judicial. We have met 2 or 3 times in the time I've been on judicial, but I go to every Senate meeting. I've been going to Senate meetings since last spring, for the fun of it. And I think one of the big things that we need to do is improve the way SGA runs and make sure we're actually talking about what students care about, like so many of the vice presidential candidates said, and not just talking about what SGA wants to be talking about.
High school Bruce would have told you that you were crazy if you told me my freshman year would be characterized by the Hardesty parking lot turning into a water park, by time at one of the nation's most distinguished and distinct honors colleges, as well as performances by Sway Lee, Sean Kingston, and Waka Flocka Flame. My freshman year was one of the best times of my entire life, and you couldn't pay me enough money to quit talking about it. However, over the past year and a half, we've seen budget cuts and administrative changes really cloud that vision. But I know that our potential is far from spent. I believe that we need a leader with determination, with passion, with enthusiasm, and who is willing to show deep care for the students and make real change on campus. We need someone with a concrete plan to come in and make the changes that we've been talking about for far too long. I'm Bruce Bigler, and I hope you'll join me in reigniting TU.
Good evening, my name is Jake Stahl. I'm a junior running for student body president here at the University of Tulsa. I'm a peer mentor, I'm a housing manager, I've been chief of staff of Student Government Association for this past year, and I'm a parishioner at the Newman Center on campus. First, during this term, I would like to prioritize student life by increasing funding for student organizations, by expanding events and supporting opportunities for students, supporting opportunities for students by facilitating a capital fundraising campaign through our Department of Advancement and Alumni Relations. Using this funding, that'll go directly into student accounts, organization accounts, to improve funding and improve our student life overall. Second, I advocate for absolute free speech, especially for our student organizations promoting constructive and free-flowing discussion. During homecoming this past fall, we had an organization that went out and engaged in street painting and put political expressions out there, and the university decided to censor that and provided a threat assessment, but that was never disclosed. And so under my administration, we're going to be, time.
Thank you, Jake. Hello, everyone. My name is Beckham Shell, and I'm running for SGA president. Over the past year, I've had the honor as serving as your vice president for the Student Government Association. During my time as vice president, I have gained the experience needed to be a student advocate in a multitude of different issues, such as fighting for the continuation of our honors college, making the administration know that we need a fall break, and working on the new language of our SGA Constitution. I know that a lot of candidates tonight will be facing backwards to the good old days of TU, but I do not wish to, repeat the financial mistakes that has led us to our current funding crisis. I still think that TU's greatest days are ahead, and I plan to fight every single day in our administration's offices to ensure that future.
Hey guys. 3 months ago, I wasn't planning on running for SGA president, and I recently saw a picture of 5th grade me in student council as vice president. And fast forward, I signed up to SGA as a junior senator in orientation. In orientation, we were told that college students are called the next generation of leaders. And I think many students here have spoken out but felt nothing change. I have a concrete plan. First, we need to streamline execution, put more take off the front load of work for student orgs, and remove the burden for them. And then second, we need to unite organizations, incentivize collaborations. Third, we need visible student voices, so I'm looking at a public tracker. And then what's been missing isn't the effort or passion, it's unity. I'm not asking for your role to lead alone. I'm asking for it so we can lead together, with clarity, with conviction, and confidence that when we stand up as one campus, our voice will be heard and taken seriously. One TU, we will do it together. Vote Harish.
Our next question will start with Aristotle. Many student leaders across campus are involved in Greek life, multicultural, faith-based, athletic, and many other organizations. What are your plans to support these different organizations in an unbiased manner? Sorry, Bruce will actually start this one.
Here on campus, we have an incredible group for each one of these communities. We have awesome Greek life. We have awesome multicultural organizations, religious, athletics, the same goes for them. However, these groups often tend to work in their own little bubbles. We see, in Greek life, we see Chios supporting Tridelts D-Hop. We see the Tridelts going to Pikes Kickball. We see the Pikes going to DG Lip Sync, and there's so much interconnection in the Greek circles. Same for the multicultural organizations. There's tons of interconnection in there. However, we can find ourselves in our own little bubbles, and those bubbles don't interact as much. So my tangible plan to take a step towards fixing these issues is by creating a new cabinet position that'll work as kind of a liaison between the organizations and between SGA. SGA has a really powerful opportunity to stand in between orgs and the rest of campus, and I believe that we're wasting an opportunity to not do that. So what this new cabinet position will do is use SGA's resources and our outreach abilities in order to promote organizations' events, to work with Greek life, to promote their philanthropy weeks, to work with multicultural orgs, to get out all their different events that they host, to break down those walls that are holding campus in place and create one big community where TU is united.
Each of these organizations on campus hosts a diverse group of individuals with diverse ideas and new ideas coming through every day. As I've done since I first set foot on campus, I've been committed to meeting with all these individuals and experiencing what each group has to offer. I will continue to meet and speak with students from all sorts of organizations and hear out their concerns as I have over the course of this past year. I've met with organizations like Students for Justice in Palestine to address the free speech issues that I had mentioned prior. And I'm willing to continue to do that over the course of this next year for all other organizations and hear out their concerns. In addition to that, I will be hosting regular office hours weekly, as I have for this past year, open to all students and all organizations so that they are able to swing by, join me in the SGA offices, snag me on a run around campus, or just shoot me an email. I want everyone to feel comfortable wanting to share their concerns, share their input, so that the Student Government Association as a whole can best support the student body.
This past year, I believe one of my greatest accomplishments was staying impartial within our Student Senate. That is a #1 virtue of being a vice president. And to ensure that every bill and resolution that is presented to the Senate is presented in good faith. And I believe those skills that I have learned by being impartial as a vice president will translate well into working with student orgs from a multitude of different backgrounds. I know that many of you are in student organizations and probably know about the student org fundraising freeze that occurred last semester. That is my #1 priority, to work with student orgs to fix that, working with our SGA advisor, Peter Nguyen, the future SGA treasurer, and hopefully the new Chief Financial Officer for TU, Jeff Nivens, to ensure that that never happens again. I also wish to host a forum with a multitude of different organizations, multicultural, interfaith, political, athletic, Greek life chapters, to ensure that the leaders can come to SGA and we can have an open dialogue about what needs to change on campus. So I can take that to an administrative level and work with our provost and our hopefully new president next semester to ensure that we have a wealth of opinions on campus and that we can create a great TU. Thank you.
My responsibility as student president is to serve every student organization and not just prioritize the closest ones I'm in. The president told me that I need to be a servant leader if I want to voice the student body. And this starts with the unbiased support with systems and not personal preference. I plan to support student orgs through clear, consistent processes that apply equally. And as I was speaking to campus leaders, one of them, ASA, brought up the attention that only during events and election is when they're contacted and reached out to. In the previous 2 terms that I've been in, part of at TU, I've noticed that unless it comes to a general consensus or a general vote, there's no attention or no contact throughout the year. So that needs to be said as a regular consultants to contact them. And I don't believe in ranking communities, I believe in connecting them. I did this through my Soups Array event earlier as Director of Special Projects in Cabinet this year in the fall, where I was able to get Greek organizations, multicultural organizations, athletic organization, and faith-based organizations to be involved in a friendly competition, which we were able to show our community and showcase it to the greater community of Tulsa, as well as the TU alumni. Unbiased leadership isn't about treating every org the same. It's about making sure every org has a fair path to succeed.
I mean, they've all knocked it out of the park. It's really important, and it's very crucial that we, as president, whichever one of us gets elected, represents every student equally, and that is what I'm really, really dedicated to. I started out, the reason I'm running right now is because back in October, I started a group me called Hurricane Against Hearn, and overnight, 300 people joined that group. And I saw that we were missing a real outlet on campus for students to express their voices and have their issues heard. And so that is what I am going to dedicate myself to as president. I will leave the legislating to the Senate. I will leave the judicial review to the judiciary. And I will be the student liaison to every group, and I will be there, I will listen, I will fight for what they need, whatever it is. And particularly right now, we all know that's money. So I will work with whoever the treasurer is. I think we know who it's gonna be. But I will work with her to reassure that we are spending our money in the right places and that every dime, every penny goes to the student orgs that need it.
Our next question, we'll start with Jake. What do you consider your key accomplishments at TU, and how will they contribute to your success as president?
So my greatest accomplishment so far at TU, I would have to say, is my own personal growth. So that's contributed to my success in supporting the student body in a multitude of ways. From my faith and the way that I approach problems, the way I handle drastic, sudden changes in situations, all the way to how I handle other people and how I treat people. TU has played a major role in my personal growth, my personal journey, and I would have to say that's my biggest accomplishment so far. As for how that'll affect my presidency, I've learned how to work very, very well with small groups of people and now with large groups of people through Senate and through our executive team. My perspective right now is just overall very positive, persistent, and I hope to carry that into my presidency over the course of this next year. It was something that a close mentor of mine had told me a little while ago, that the best leaders are those who are in it for others to win. And I really took that to heart, and my presidency will be enumerated by that and that alone. I want to be in it for the student body to win. I want to see you all succeed. I want to see organizations succeed. And that will be what my term is all about. Thank you.
As Vice President, I have seen myself as a facilitator for our Student Senate. So I do not wish to take credit for any of the bills and resolutions that have gone through the Senate in the past year. However, I have been able to participate and support some of these initiatives. President Ransom and I worked with the Constituent Engagement Chair, Quinsala Odendele, to fight and win a fall break for next semester. Another personal achievement of mine, last year when I was running, I campaigned on lowering the executive salary, and we were able to do that. It went from around $2,500 to $2,000 and around $100. And that is a personal achievement for mine of being able to accomplish one of my campaign goals. Another thing that I see as an achievement that is ongoing is working to update our new SGA Constitution. I know that many of you are kind of wondering, didn't we vote on that last year? That is true. The Board of Trustees was presented that Constitution and had revisions. And the Senate, rightfully so, did not wish to pass those revisions. And since then, I've been working constantly with our General Counsel, which is the top lawyer of TU, Sherilyn Wheaton Ralston, and we have been able to work, and hopefully tomorrow we will be able to pass an SGA constitution that can please both the board and the student senate. And the experience I have gained by being able to talk to administration has been invaluable. Thank you.
So I'm going to go through a list of my accomplishments at TU, and these are going to be more appropriate for my agenda. So starting off, I want to go back to Soups Array we were just talking about. We had 20 student organizations being able to compete, and I've already done the work I'm proposing, which is having student orgs collaborating for an event or to get a community-style approach. Through Soups Array, I learned that collaboration increases turnout, shares resources, builds community beyond silos. Student orgs don't lack the ideas, they just need the structure to support and work together. My second accomplishment is my leadership in both SGA and multicultural organizations. Since my first year in the SGA and multicultural organizations, I've been able to work up through the ranks and have many lessons learned through the multiple flagship events I've been able to plan out and navigate through as systems. Inside SGA, I learned how decisions, funding, and approvals actually work. Inside student orgs, I learned what it's like to plan flagship events and navigate those systems. The lesson I learned from SGA was when its field disconnected from orgs, execution breaks down. When SGA acts as a partner, impact multiplies. And then my third accomplishment was getting top 10 freshmen in the previous semester. This showed that I really got early impact and trust of a student board and student association, and being recognized as top 10 freshman reflected measurable involvement and follow-through. That experience taught me how to build momentum quickly and earn trust, both essential for this role. These experiences prepared me to unite people, streamline execution, and turn student effort into visible outcomes.
I think my biggest accomplishment at TU has just been finding who I really am. I went to school in a neighboring area at Bixby. I see a couple people in here who I went to high school with. If any of you knew me back then, I'm not the same person at all. The first year of college was such an incredible formative experience, and I think it's that way for everyone. They really find who they are, what kind of people they like being around, and what they like to do. And I think that's the greatest part of college, and especially TU, with such a small campus and with so many great, strong student organizations. And that's really where I found myself, was in those organizations. I joined TUTV, and I discovered my love for journalism. I joined OIL, and I discovered my love for legislating, and I am now joining SGA. I joined SGA last semester, and I realized that I care about what happens on this campus, and I want to be a voice for change that impacts what is happening on this campus. So my job and my goal is to make sure that everyone has that same experience that I had, where they are able to join organizations that are supported and well-funded, and that they are able to find who they are in those places.
The past 3 semesters, I've served as the Chief Elections Officer of the Student Government Association, but if you think back a little bit before then, you'll remember 2 very unique elections in which the winning candidate of the presidential election, both years back-to-back, 2023 and 2024, did not end up taking the role of presidency. First time, it was due to a misuse of campaign email lists, and second time, it was due to a suspicion of eavesdropping by one of the candidates. And so I came in as CEO, having seen those issues that are going on with the election cycle, and seeing that the student body clearly was not being represented through elections. And so over a process of a few months, we worked on completely cleaning out the elections code, saying what violations actually deserve to be punished in that manner, and what things need to kind of be tabled so that we can truly get the best representation of students. So what we've done is we've completely publicized all elections registration, all elections endorsements. We've worked to simplify elections violations and make it so that SGA is accessible to anyone and everyone, and so that student voices are truly being heard. We also instituted ranked choice voting, which is part of the reason why you see 5 people on this stage today, is because we're no longer confined to certain groups, but we can expand and truly speak for the students in the best way possible. Now, I've also worked in some other organizations across campus as a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, all the roles. I know the challenges that organizations face and would love to step in to help them and be a voice for all of campus.
The next question, Beckham will start off. How will you handle criticism and concerns and incorporate them into your work as an officer?
Okay. Being in my current role, I have had moments where people have expressed concern about Senate meetings or a mistake that I've made or, constructive feedback that is given to me. And I think tonight that we saw that during the VP debate, and I take those to heart, and I plan on utilizing those to further make our SGA meetings efficient. We've also been able to update our Senate standing rules, which is what the Senate, is being used to guide our Senate meetings. And now if you come to a Senate meeting, orgs will be first, even before all reports. That is a criticism that, that SGA is, not efficient. But now we're trying to make sure that orgs go first before any business. I also know that as president, I will have to make hard decisions, but I know that I will not make them alone. I will have, a great support structure to offer me advice and words of wisdom. I also want to have opportunities to get student feedback. That is why I want to do a monthly tabling session in the union, get their responses and their feedback about, current administrative policies and the conduction of SGA administrative policies as well. And I want to, as president, seek the best compromise and to be able to fix those issues. Being president is about being able to take the opinions of others and make the best choice for the student body. And I feel like I am one of the best candidates to do that. Thank you.
Well, to start off, I'm the younger sibling, so my life has just been listening and responding my whole life. Also being compared to my older brother, so I don't think it'll be big shoes to fill in for Katie Jo. But I think something that Katie Jo did very efficiently was build together a diverse cabinet team, which that few of us are part of. I think criticism is only useful if leadership is willing to absorb it, reflect, and act. So my first response is always going to be to listen and clarify, not defend. And when I met a diverse cabinet team, I don't want yes men. I want appointments based on perspective, commitment, and willingness to challenge ideas. And then a part of my agenda, I plan to have a public tracker for projects. So this should show not only transparency and communication like our VPs were earlier discussing, but it also should show some involvement from students to see given feedback and criticize the projects that we're working on, to ramp up the speed in the projects that we're working on, or to see what direction we should take it in next. And the next thing is I really did want criticism and concerns for my debate today and my agenda and platform that I've planned on. So that's why earlier today I went to Interim President Dixon and talked to him on what I need to do better. That's when he suggested the whole servant leader bit. And he was like, you first need to be able to serve the students, work from the ground up, be amongst the students, and then you'll be able to voice them, because if you just go to the throne, then you won't be able to know what they really do want.
I think that all criticism comes from a good place. I mean, you're not sitting here watching the SGA Executive Debate because you don't care about SGA. You're sitting here because you think that things could improve. You have criticisms for SGA, and so do I. So do all of us. We have criticisms for SGA, and we are here trying to incorporate them. But it's also our duty to hear your criticisms and incorporate them. And I don't think that I can take any criticism. Nothing is gonna get to me on a personal level, because I know it's all about just what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And if you want me to wear a suit, I'll wear a suit. But I don't think that's the biggest issue on this stage today.
One of my favorite SGA moments is when I had almost finished the elections code with a group of other people. We were working to revitalize and revamp the whole thing, and just when it was about to go to the floor of Senate, I got a kidney stone, and I went to the hospital and was working on the final edits of the elections code in the hospital with a kidney stone, having my mom transcribe the changes, shooting emails to different people in SGA, trying to get this thing hammered out before Senate so that it could make an impact on the next elections. And I know that's a little bit of an extreme example. I am praying that that does not happen again, but if it were to, I would just love you all to know that criticism and working with others is one of the things that I most highly value. I think if you look to Yik Yak or anywhere on campus, you'll find plenty of critique for SGA. And being a good leader means tuning some of that out and knowing what's real, knowing what leaders need to take into account and listen to and apply to their platforms. I think Katie Jo has done an excellent job of this in her presidency, having things like cocoa and conversations and popsicles for presidency and all sorts of different events to hear from people what actually needs to change here on campus. And she's done a great job of implementing that. So I'm looking for more ways to continually grow by the people around me because they're our greatest asset.
I welcome criticism as a natural component of serving a large group of people, especially a student body of almost 4,000 people of undergraduates alone. But similar to how I'll assist student organizations themselves, I will have office hours open weekly for students to come drop by, to just meet with me and give their concerns. I want to have critiques given to me. I want to know what people are happy about, what they're unhappy about. To assist my presidency, over this whole past year, so I've been chief of staff this past year, and that's been my whole job, taking criticism from senators right below me, to fellow cabineteers, to our exec, to administration. My whole job has been built upon healthy, constructive criticism. So I know how to take it, I know how to give it. Over this past year, that's been pretty much all I've had to do. So going forward, that'll be a really, really important part of being a good president. And I'm very confident that I will excel in that realm. Thank you.
The next audience question is for Harish only. 6 months into your term, what is the one win you want to be remembered for, and how will we, the students, be able to measure it if you've actually achieved it?
So I'll start off with what I have upcoming right now. So every year, TU SGA hosts Service Day. And this year, we're hosting it under the title of TU's Together United Initiative. And this is what I want to be remembered right now in my term as cabinet. In 6 months next year, I want to be remembered for voicing student voices, for being able to bring those student body and bring them into Tulsa, show the impact they have on Tulsa, and show that the mayor is able to work with us here on campus. And then hopefully, a reach goal of mine whenever we had brainstorming was to get TU on national news and get national recognition for an initiative that we are pushing. I know that we're trying to be unbiased for a lot of issues, but I think that college students can voice their opinions and can make a real impact on a global perspective.
The next audience question is for all of you, starting with Aristotle. How do you approach confrontation with your higher-ups?
Well, my higher-ups in this position would be, students, really, because you put me in this position, but also TU administration and all of their bureaucracy. And I think, really, that their criticism is great, but they're making a lot of money. They're fine. Students need more support. So I will be there hearing their criticism and understanding where it's coming from, but more importantly, pushing for what students want from them.
I think far too often, SGA has been very reactionary. We find out that the president of the Honors College, something has happened there. We no longer have that dean of the Honors College anymore, and then we take a stand. We get our budget, finding out that organizations' budgets have been cut into a quarter, and then we do something about it. And so I think being a good SGA leader means getting in there before those changes have been made. We should know what's going on campus. We should know the big changes that are about to happen and be able to advocate students before then. At the end of my term, I hope that administration is two things. First, incredibly grateful for the work that we've done to bring concerns to students to them over and over and over. And the second thing, I hope they are incredibly relieved to not have to hear the sound of my voice ever again because of how much we have gone to them over and over and over, bringing our concerns and fighting for the things that students are really passionate about. I think being a good leader means being there 24/7 before something really big happens so that the students can know and the students can have an input in that decision.
It all starts with personal connections. So again, through my past position this year as Chief of Staff, I've had the opportunity to meet with the Director of Dining, Campus Services, with the Office of the Provost, and the Office of the President. In this position, I've gotten very close with all of them, especially the Dean of Students. We've gotten to be able to work with them on many, many issues affecting student organizations, student life, and student government. So it all starts with having those good relationships in place beforehand, as Bruce had mentioned. But on top of that, so there's a philosophy that I really, really appreciate. Perfect in private and praise in public. So that means as student body president, you don't ever publicly diss on administration. Your job is to support what the administration is doing, but meet with them beforehand and make sure that they're making the correct decisions ahead of time to make sure that the student body is best served.
Hi, yes. So I guess two higher ups I would have in this situation would be KJ, and we haven't had a lot of confrontation in the past. We are usually very much on the same page. When we're not, we are able to sit down and have a very amicable conversation about how to go forward and what is best for the students. Another person that may be above me, I guess you could technically say is administration, but while yes, I do have a relationship with them, it is a working relationship. We are able to work things out, but we are not friends because as Aristotle said, the person that is always above me is the students, and I'm always loyal to the students no matter what. So I will put their needs first. Thank you.
For me personally, confrontation this year is why I chose to run for president. Being in cabinet and being as a director, I've had a lot of no's, a lot of ideas that have been shut down, a lot of voices, and a lot of students' opinions that went unheard. This is because admin, a lot of times, isn't ready to hear new ideas and is stuck with the old. I think a point that was brought up at Senate last time is that we aren't admin secretary, we aren't here for translation. We're here to voice the students' opinions. I think SGA, within the few past years I've been here, has lost that priority. And I think that student voices need to be that priority again. And then, with going across Bruce's point of being reactionary, I think we need to bring that mindset into SGA for confrontation. We need to go proactive, be collaborative, and focused on outcomes. And I took that initiative today by meeting with the president, talking about my agenda, and starting my work even before this election is over or my term is started.
The next question will be for all of you, starting with Beckham. Most people who are active in SGA really care about change. However, most students on campus are indifferent to the types of change SGA wants to make. What do you have to say to those people who do not want the president to be an activist?
I would say that the inherent role of president is being an activist. And I would think that if you don't want the president to be activist, I would want to sit down with you and ask you, what do you want the president to do? Because my number one goal, no matter what, is to advocate to administration and to the higher-ups at TU about the things that are going on at TU. And I would hope that I would be an activist in this regard because I want to achieve a very robust policy in my next year. And I think having an activist spirit and being able to tap into that kind of fire that comes with being an advocate is what is needed in the presidency right now as we're going through such a turbulent transition. Thank you.
For the point of being activists for personal reasons, I think that we need to be able to advocate for student voice in the student body as a whole. I haven't posted any agenda or any points on what I'm advocating for in the past week, as I've been collecting with the campus leaders and administration to see what really we need here at TU and what we need to advocate for. So I've come here congregating all of these points together and all this information together as this is what the student body needs. This is the change that you guys are looking for. And then that change is why I'm going to be making as president and in the front line as in front of the student body.
I understand why someone would want the SGA president to just step back and let things be the way they are, but all of us are paying an SGA fee to go to this university, and I think we should all get our money's worth out of that. So if we are paying for SGA to exist, then SGA should be fighting for us. And I think that that is the most important job of the president, is to be there and fight for students, like I've said on the last 500 questions, probably.
Nobody wants a president to be an activist until their budget is cut. Nobody wants their president to be an activist until people are fired without their knowledge. Nobody wants the president to be an activist until you want a fall break. If you don't want an activist to be your president, then I would say don't vote for me, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I want to march into the president's office on day one and make it incredibly clear the things that students are demanding and the things that students are very, very passionate about. And so what that looks like practically is in the area of funding. I want to make it clear to the university administration that students deserve a portion of the university's resources. We are able to make great use of it, and we have in the past with organizations and with different events, and those are the things that have brought campus together in large part. So I'm hoping to make it very clear to the administration what we need, what we want, and take practical, real steps, like talking to alumni, talking to donors to make those things happen.
Within SGA, we have 3 branches for a reason. We have our judicial to hold the other 2 branches accountable. We have our Senate to hear out student concerns from the ground up. And then we have the president to go kind of above all of those and talk with students and make sure that we go straight to administration without having to have resolutions pumped through or other projects pumped through a pipeline. But the goal of the presidency is to not be an activist, but to be proactive in meeting with administration and meeting students and administration where they're at and making sure that both sides reach an appeal towards the end. Thank you.
The next question will be, sorry, I lost my place. For Jake specifically. Can you elaborate on your platform of free speech absolutism and explain the president's role in that?
So during my opening statement, as I had started to explain, during homecoming, we had our annual street painting where student organizations are allowed to go out on the new U with their organization and paint whatever they would like. And one organization decided to engage in a form of political expression that they saw fit, and the university conducted a threat assessment against that. And the threat assessment resulted in the street painting being painted over, and the organization was not allowed to have any sort of explanation until probably a week or so later. I immediately met with that organization because I feel very strongly about free speech, especially on a private institution, a private research institution, one of the best in the state. I think that's unacceptable. I think we should hold our administration more accountable than that. I think that we should have student organizations be allowed to engage in whatever free speech that they choose. Thank you.
The next one will be for Aristotle only. You have expressed strong views in the past that may not be reflective of campus. How will you gain the confidence from students who may not align with your values in order to represent the student body?
I'm a very political guy. I love politics. That's why I'm a political science major. It's why I'm going to TU with the best political science major in the state. And my answer to that question is just we keep politics out of SGA. This isn't about politics. We're not voting on whether abortion should be legal, about free health care. We're talking about issues on a student campus. We're talking about free speech for students on a campus that always proclaims itself to be one of the top free speech campuses in the country, but then paints over student artwork. We're talking about representing students for what they care about. I am not running for president because I don't like a certain political party. I'm running for president because I don't like how things are being done when it comes to helping students.
The next question is for Harish only. I saw your Instagram post with the current president of TU, Rick Dixon. What matters did you discuss about?
So, this morning, between classes, I had a meeting with President Rick Dixon, and what happened was I proactively met with campus leaders before the election, and I scheduled a meeting with them to address these issues that the campus leaders brought to me. And of course, we brought it up a few times before, and that is funding is tight. I don't want to make any empty promises like some other candidates may, but I've started that connection and started making that proactive relationship with the president that we do need to work on funding and we do need to collaborate between the orgs to approach that issue. Another thing is I'm not really promising control with meeting with the president. It's that we need to unite together, and that's what my platform is focusing on, these organizations. And it's also about how administration, I'm not just talking about making these connections with administration and translating or bridging between them. I'm already starting that connection.
The next question is for Beckham only. As you currently serve on the executive administration, what issues have you noticed this year and hope to address if elected?
Yeah, so one that I've definitely noticed, I may be a bit biased, is the Honors College. We have, as others have mentioned, we have had one of the best honors colleges in the country. And I have been able to be a part of that experience. I've gone through my 4 semesters. I will be graduating with honors. I was able to be kind of raised in a, environment that valued philosophy and these other different, ideals and values and virtues. And that's something that I wish to address, next semester. I want to continue to work to make sure that our honors college is still the best in the country, no matter what happens. And I want to make sure that our students know that, and I can be able to be a supporter of our honors college as, someone that has been an alumni of it. Thank you so much.
The next question will be for Bruce only. If elected, how do you plan to handle conversations with those you may disagree with?
That's a great question, and I think that is pretty much the core of everything that we do in SGA. Recently in Senate, we've had a lot of very contentious bills. We've had a Turning Point USA chapter come up. We've also had a Students for Justice in Palestine bill come up. We've had a Young Democratic Socialists of America, Students for Choice, Students for Life, and many more heavily contentious issues. But I think what SGA has done really, really well this semester is saying that it's not our job to measure the virtue of every single one of those clubs. It's not our job to decide whether they have a right to exercise their free speech or not. Because as a university, we've decided that they do have a right to exercise that free speech. And so dealing with others that you disagree with doesn't mean shutting them down. It doesn't mean saying there's no place for that here, but it means dealing with it respectfully, listening to the different ideas that are presented, and not just accepting them all, but it means that the best ideas will rise to the top. When we have a broad variety of ideas, we're able to debate them, we're able to discuss them, and find the ones that are actually realistic and beneficial for our university. So that's how I plan to deal with those issues.
The next question is for Aristotle only. Some of your relations with administration has been perceived as antagonistic in the past. With how closely the president works with admin, how do you plan to foster a more positive dynamic with them?
I'm not going to stand here and pretend that the Board of Trustees likes me very much. I think it's pretty clear they don't. But I don't think that should matter here, and I think that if I'm elected president, then they should respect that clearly people support the things that they are being criticized, that the board is being criticized for. But I will do everything in my power to have a friendly working relationship with the board, because I don't think they're bad people. I don't think they don't have our best interests at heart. I just don't think that they are like us students and like me, down on the ground on our campus and knowing what those issues are. And that was the only goal I had when I was going after the administration, was just making sure that they knew what students wanted.
The last audience question will be for all of you, starting with Jake. Where do you draw the line between free speech and hate speech?
I believe that everyone in this country has the right to free speech. Hate speech, on the other hand, would be classified as threats of violence, either physical or emotional, I guess. I don't think that anyone on this campus should be engaging in any sort of hate speech, but everyone has the right to express any views that they profess. That's the beauty of a private institution. That's the beauty of living in the United States. Thank you.
I think Jake, summed it up pretty succinctly. Violence and threat against others, I think that's what hate speech entails. And I think once it has reached that level, that is a issue for the Dean of Students, who has, articulated in the past that that is her realm and that she will be taking care of it as a representative for the students. Thank you.
I think the fine line between free speech and hate speech is going to be when it starts impacting other people or directly acting on other people, where for violence and death threats, it'd be wherever the person's security is in question, or even whenever someone has to question their own security or their thought processes, or having to amend their questions and thoughts for the other person to feel safe. And I think our goal as Senate body and SGA in whole is to make TU more of a free space to personally have free speech and the First Amendment here on campus.
I think that our free speech on campus is one of the most important things we have. I mean, I would not be standing here thinking that I could do this job if it weren't for the free speech that this campus provided me. And I think that it's important that everyone on whatever side of any issue they feel safe and represented and able to speak out for what they believe. But again, as everyone has said, there are times when speech is hateful, when speech is dangerous, when speech is violent, and those are the only times when there should be any action taken against that speech.
I agree with the other candidates and think the SGA needs to tread the line very carefully of protecting free speech, but also ensuring safety for all of our students.
We will now start with closing statements, starting with Aristotle.
I think that any one of us would do a great job as president, but I would not be running if I thought that I would not be running if I didn't think that I could do the best job. I think that my position outside of SGA makes me unique in that all of these other candidates have a lot of experience in SGA and they've been doing this work for a long time, but they've had the time to have the issues that they think are important solved. And I think it's time for a fresh face, for fresh ideas, and for fresh direction. And that's why I'm running to bring change for you.
Homecoming week of last year was one of my favorite weeks of all my college experience. I was surrounded by family and friends. Paul Russell performed. There was an entire TU-themed drone show. It's a pretty great week, but something that did slow our momentum was, you guessed it, our football game, in which we played the UTSA Roadrunners. And during that game, we were down 35-7 at halftime. But I've always said we're a fourth quarter team, and over the next half, we came back and beat them 47-46 with the biggest comeback in college football history, well, of 2024 in the nation. And so with that, I think it says a lot about TU, because we're not willing to stand down when we fall and when we trip, but we always get back up on our feet and we fight. And I believe that we need a leader who represents that. A leader who's willing to fight for student voices, who's willing to be with the president and with administration, pushing on the things that we think are truly important and actually making a difference. I'm done with empty promises, I'm done with talk, and I'm excited for SGA to do what it's supposed to do.
Actually, I disagree with Aristotle on this one. I believe that all of us here have done a fantastic job over this past year, and that our positions have perfectly set us all up to run for this president's office. But working with administration, you have to have these prior relationships, and that's why I'm pressing for greater organization funding. I'm pressing for full transparency. I'm pressing for free speech for all organizations, for students. It is time that we take back Tulsa and prepare the university for a bright and exciting future full of large, exciting events, regular updates from administration, and an atmosphere focused on the student experience. And with that, vote for Jake Stahl for president. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I know that you will have a very hard decision next week, but I hope I've been able to outline, myself and my campaign platform in the best possible manner. I know that we are all running on kind of the same three guiding philosophies, which is transparency, outreach, efficiency, but I actually want to tell you how I plan to accomplish those things. For transparency, I want to have a weekly meeting with the Collegian or TUTV to be very candid about the decisions I make. For outreach, I want to make sure that SGA is fully included in, the campus community, and I also see that as, getting whoever our new president in and reining them in and be like, you need to be at these events, you need to be seen by the student body, and I plan to do that. And then finally, I just see the efficient funding of our student awards as my #1 priority. Again, I thank all of you for coming out tonight. If you have any questions about my campaign, my number is 405-584-2402. Thank you all.
I think all of us share the same passion. We care about the student body. But where should I start first? Should I start with the guy advocating for concealed carries openly? Or should I talk about the one working on election code for 2 years and then as soon as ranked election comes out, conveniently runs for president? Or the guy that holds an exec position now and suddenly wants to help student orgs and hasn't done anything in the past year? Or the guy walking into the Senate meeting disrespecting decorum and calling a student org a slur? Instead, I'll talk about my campaign. This campaign isn't about one person or one position. TU is full of students who care deeply and show up every day. What's been missing isn't passion, it's unity. I'm running to bring student voice together, make it visible, and turn it into action. One TU, we do it together. Vote Harish.
Thank you, candidates, all candidates, for participating tonight. Audience, we have an exit poll we asked you to fill out how you felt about the debate and the candidates. Thank you all so much for coming, and remember to vote next week on Harvey, February 16th and 17th. Thank you.